Welcome to the stream. I am Ren Farnell, technical designer at UX is Fine, and I'm joined by Kayleigh, who I will introduce in a moment. I'm just going to jump over to the right scene here. When I find the right scene, here we go. So a little bit of scuff on the stream because Steam isn't online on a Tuesday when it updates everything, and so we're just going to show this trailer real quick. I'm not going to run the
Welcome
whole
to the
trailer.
Offices of Productivity Analysis.
We have this liminal game. It's about exploration, it's about containing anomalies,
Containment
it's
is your
about
duty.
trying to find escapes or discovering ways to escape through play. And there's a bunch of different scenes. It's sort of a high-res game that we're creating as a test bed for things like this process here, which is playtesting, reviewing feedback, doing UI UX iterations on the game. And we've also used it as a test bed for tech, so localization, settings, achievements, general Steam stuff, UI, UMG, tech art, etc. But yeah, let me introduce Kayleigh, or let Kayleigh introduce herself. So, hi Kayleigh, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good, good. Excited.
Oh,
Do you
yes, I
wanna,
can't
do
wait to
you,
get started.
yeah, do you want to give us a little overview of your role, your expertise, your area?
Yes, so I am a UX designer. So that means I do a lot of UX designs. Who would have guessed? I guess that involves like lots of screen layouts, lots of making sure that players are able to find what they're looking for in certain areas, making sure that they're having a good time with the games that they're playing, and that they understand everything that's going on as well, especially when they first like boot up a game. Oftentimes, this can also involve playtesting, which is what we're going to be talking about a little bit today, and getting our games in front of players, letting them mess around with them and give their thoughts to us.
I just tried to quickly flick through the UX is Fine website
Yes.
to give people an
Oh,
idea
yeah.
of like some of that stuff. But yeah, the playtesting portion, the sort of like the game feedback portion is where we're gonna reside today, which is cool. So we used the office rooms and we got it playtested, right? So what was the process like there? I remember we used a platform, but like what kind of things were we looking to get out of it?
Yes. Do you want me to mention the platform's name or
No, don't worry about that. I think
don't worry about that? Okay.
because there's so many platforms that you can use. Like,
Totally fair.
you can just go online and be like, "Oh, give me a platform that allows me to record video and give me takeaways." But like, what were the things that we're looking to take away?
Okay. So essentially when we like submitted our game build and everything, we just wanted to see how players were feeling about the game. So we had lots of survey questions at the end of the game that they were asked. So just questions like, did you enjoy your experience? Focusing on like different aspects of the game as well, comparing it to other games that they have played in a similar genre, asking them if they've played any games in a similar genre. And then more open-ended questions as well, like, oh, what would you expect to see on a full release of the game? And then like asking specifics like, what did you find positive about the game? What did you find negative about the game? And just anything else that they would like to submit, just so we can get an overall feel for how the game is playing right now.
Yeah, I remember being there for that and sort of like you were like guiding the questions, and I was sort of
Mhm.
asking a few things that I might be interested in. Um, yeah, it's a weird game to review because it's a very niche type of game. You're you're only going to get picked up with a liminal space exploration game with no major mechanics, no mainstream audience. On in a real scenario, you're only going to get picked up by very experimental audiences. And so this was a cool process. I remember we picked casual and mid-core players as the
Mhm.
target, and that because of course we could do hardcore, and I think that would be an interesting one to do after some iterations to see the difference. Although that won't provide any measurable like comparison because it'll be like a build with two types of people and a completely different build with a different type of
Yeah.
people. There's that hard to compare. Um, And we went with an age range, right? We went with like 18 to 35.
Yeah, I believe it was around that.
Yeah. And we can see in the top left here as well the demographic. Yeah, we went with
Yes, yes.
proportion of
We're
males and
doing on that.
female. That was my choice. I was like, I think the market for this type of game would be more males. Um, in general, the mass market is mostly dominated by males, as far as I'm aware, although constantly shifting towards an even split. Yeah, okay, cool. And then there was like video portions, right? And so we had like more qualitative. Uh,
Yes. Absolutely. So basically, how the system works is like players record themselves playing the game. In this case, we ask that they play the game for at least an hour. And then we get all those juicy bits of video afterwards. So we just get to spend some time watching it. I have not actually finished watching all the videos yet. So you guys are jumping in midway through to this process a little bit here. But we get the chance to watch through all those videos and then hopefully catch some bits of information that aren't necessarily represented in the post survey. We've done playtests as well before where like players will say one thing in the post survey and then they'll actually be doing another when you watch the videos that they've submitted. So this is one of the reasons why it's like super important to be doing both, like reading those survey answers and also watching through the videos, because not
yeah,
everyone will always have like an accurate idea of what they actually did in their playtest.
yeah. I've noticed as well that we do have AI to help us with taking out speech that players have said, but you never know if the context in that scenario and what you've just
Mhm.
described, where it's like they say one thing but they do another. That's so typical of players, and AI is no better. Uh, there are
Yeah, it's
assumptions and miscommunications in there as well, so we have to look through it with our human eyes and actually
oh
put our
yeah.
expertise, yeah, to it, right?
It,
So I think that that's really important.
it's really important to do that. I 100% agree with that. Like, at least with the platform we've been using as well, like, oftentimes the AI is missing a lot of super important stuff to us. Specifically, like, if the player isn't directly, like, calling out what they're doing, but you can see what they're doing in their actions. AI isn't catching that right now. And that's
Yeah,
why
of
it's so important
course.
for us to actually be watching the videos ourselves.
Yeah, and I don't who knows what the future holds. But I've
Yeah,
seen other
I know.
platforms as well, and sometimes they have similar issues. So, um, super grateful for you putting your time up for sifting through this stuff and doing um, what looks like an awesome amount of work here. So I'm excited to see. Shall we jump into where would you want to start? So you present this feedback to me now that we've got an idea of what
Oh.
this is. If I was a client and we were yeah, just doing a kickoff here on the feedback. I'll let you take it away.
Yeah. So if you were a client, honestly, I probably wouldn't show you a significant amount of this. What we end up doing for our clients is typically like making a presentation for them and
Hmm.
doing like high level takeaways, pointing out stuff that we find important. Because lots of the notes you're gonna see here is like oftentimes very little things that I'm picking up
Yeah,
on as I'm like looking for trends. Sometimes they're significant, sometimes they're not. So if I tried to like walk a client through like all these sticky notes, I'd probably see their eyes glaze over like way
yeah.
before I was done.
Fair, fair.
Um, I
Different
guess like
audience then in this case.
yeah.
Indie
Do you want to
developer
know?
versus yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. So I guess like do you want to know about like the process of how we like kicked off the playtest as well and like why we did some of the things we did, or do you want to focus more on like our observations from the playtest?
I do want to get into the observations because I want to come out at the
Yes.
end with a couple of action points, but I am really interested in what you said there about why the whys and the hows.
Yeah, so we can kind of focus on the survey questions a little bit more. I know this comes like after the play test, but these questions are super important in like really trying to figure out how the player felt about the game. Even though we instruct our players like, hey, we want you to like think aloud and like talk about what you're feeling and why you're doing the things that you're doing. Sometimes even the players that are instructed to do that are gonna forget about that during a play test. We had one player, I think it was player two, yeah, yeah. That you could see I have like very few notes on this player. He just kind of like played the game, which is great. We're still getting some information based on like the observations we're making about that player, but he wasn't quite as good about like calling out what he was feeling in certain areas. It was more just like, okay, I'm doing this, I'm going to do that next, that sort
Mhm.
of stuff. So that's where these survey questions come in, and it lets us ask those like more specific questions to the players and say like, hey, I want you to think about how your experience was playing this game, for example. And this is, the result of that question. Unfortunately, it is skewed a little bit more to the left, but as you kind of like mentioned at the beginning, Ren, is like this game is more targeted towards a specific audience, those who are more familiar with like liminal games and more interested in kind of like a walking simulator puzzly game.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that can be a little bit more challenging. It's not necessarily for everyone, so I think it does speak to somewhat why the results are a little bit more skewed to the left.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it also does like help us pinpoint things that are causing a lot of friction.
Just looking at the player
Like,
demographic here,
yeah,
actually, and it's like
I'll scooch
many of
over.
them never heard of the game type. And we
Hmm.
did have the option to filter people out if they hadn't heard of this type of game.
Yeah.
And there's pros and cons to both sides, right? Like, obviously, the pro is like, let's just think about our own audience, but the likelihood is, um, other audiences are going to find the game. We spoke about this as well
Hmm.
about like, well, some people might be interested in it and jump in and what's their experience, right? Just from a person who's never played these games. So I'm not too
Hmm.
sad that a lot of these people hadn't heard of a liminal space or exploration heavy game. And the feedback leans to the left because all it means is that there's a lot of friction that we
Hmm.
can address for your average player who isn't part of the niche. And the likelihood is a person in the niche, and I've seen this anyway through a little bit of YouTube videos I've already posted, they're okay with it. And I think they're only going to be
Yeah.
even more okay with it if some of these things that come out of this test just smooth it out, right? Like improve it
Hmm.
in general. So, but yeah, good point. We could do another test potentially where we were like just liminal players, but I would definitely do it after because I've seen that there's some common issues in the game. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and I think,
this
like,
is helpful.
definitely the people who are more familiar with the genre did like it more. I know there was at least one person I think that wasn't familiar with it, that because it was P5 and P4 who were familiar with the genre. One of them has played several of these types of games before, and the other one said that they often watch like YouTube
Playthroughs.
playthroughs of these.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Um, but we did have someone who like said as well that those two were the two that enjoyed it a lot, and then we had the one person who somewhat enjoyed it. They thought it was interesting, kind of a mystery what you're doing, and going to see in the game. So it definitely has like the room to grow, and that's why we do these play tests as well. Is like we want to find those points of friction before release happens so that we can smooth them out and then make sure that like everyone who is coming to the game for the first time is enjoying themselves and we don't have those like issues so much.
Yeah, immediate bounce. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially with the motion sickness.
Yeah. I
I've
definitely
noticed.
wanted to call that out.
I don't know what to do about it. It's not. I mean, I've had it a few times, and so I've had different builds where I'm like, okay, I'll
Mhm.
make the field of view 110. I'll make the field of
Yeah.
view 60, and like it's a combination of that, but also the setting having these thin, tall, claustrophobic, long
Hmm.
corridors is like it's design. It's almost like it's manufactured to give you motion sickness because it's just not natural. So I need to figure something out there. And I'm
Yeah.
hoping it's not widening all hallways in the game to be 3 sections wide, wider than they are tall, which is the somewhat common feel. But yeah, there's something up with the camera for sure.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it was that. I know, so like the sticky notes here, I'll, call it out in case anyone isn't actually reading it, which I would expect none of our watchers to do. But I definitely had some issues with the motion sickness as well.
Yeah.
And I think like I have heard before in research studies that like it is more common in women. So that's definitely something interesting to call out. A couple different reasons for that, maybe not super clear as to why still. But that is one reason that like we see a lot of complaints with like video games having motion sickness issues, for example, is like if people aren't doing a lot of testing with women, they might be less likely to catch those
To
sorts of
catch
things,
it.
for example.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain. Like it sometimes it's really hard to pinpoint like why it is too, and like it's hard, especially for like you, right? It's like I'm not experiencing motion sickness, so like I don't understand where it's coming from. Makes it more challenging in order to like fix it. And I want to say it was like for me, maybe the head bobbing is what did it.
Right. Yeah.
It's
I
just
have
like,
it disableable, which is nice. I think we spoke
oh, I
about
did
this a
see
little
that.
bit briefly, right? An
Mhm.
accessibility like pop up at the beginning that's like, do
Yeah.
you just immediately want to turn the head bob off because you know you get motion sickness? Maybe just, or at least to educate the player that that setting exists, and they may choose to keep it
Yeah.
on at first and then turn it off later. But those things in FOV and stuff like that may be things to pop in a for 2E accessibility settings just to smooth that out a bit. And yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah. And like you said, is like just making people aware of it. Like even if they aren't sure that they want to turn it off right away. Because
Hmm.
I missed that it was in the settings as well, even in my
Yeah.
own playthrough.
Everyone I watched
So
actually goes straight to video. And
yeah.
I'm like, oh, it's in the main game
It's
settings.
right
Like, there's a bunch
there.
of on and offs. And I was like,
Yeah.
damn, everyone jumps
I know
straight to
like
video.
motion blur is a big one too. And I think I
Yeah,
did catch the motion blur. And I saw so many of our participants as well, like
turn it
go
off.
straight
Yeah.
into it. And they're like, oh, right away, I'm turning off motion blur.
I thought I
It's
disabled it
one
by
of those
default
nostalgia
myself,
things.
but I must have.
I don't think
Well,
so.
I'm a bad developer, didn't test it.
No, no.
I mean, there's just so much to do, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
what other questions have we got then? Let's take a look through. That's cool, though. Some people. So, the general consensus is that they didn't enjoy it. Was there a theme? I suppose that comes out through the wash here with all the other questions as to why. Yeah.
Um, Yeah, I would say that like that is definitely something that I would put in the takeaways.
Okay. Yeah,
Is
fair
that
enough.
like the biggest theme that I saw across the board, or I guess I should say at least like so far, right? Because I still have some videos to get through. Is that lots of people were saying like they just weren't really sure what was going on, and they
Yeah.
wanted a little bit more guidance in that first anomaly section.
Hmm.
Even like that one player, right? This person who has played at least three similar games was still expressing a lot of confusion like 10, 20, 30 minutes in. And this player as well also they were calling out the computers themselves as the anomalies, not like the rooms that are like super weird, which to my understanding, right, that's like that is what is supposed to be the anomaly in this situation, right? Is like the
Yeah.
rooms are the weird part. That's what we're deconstructing in this simulation.
Mm.
And they were not 100% sure, or not even sure at all, that the computers themselves were like they knew that the computers took down the anomaly. They thought the computers were the anomaly, and that's what they were searching for. And so it was like that little bit of like disconnect. They
Yeah.
still had an idea of like what they were looking for, but they weren't 100% sure on the story itself and like what the purpose and the goal of the game was. And I think that would help a lot because we had just that so far with all the other players as well.
Yeah. When you present these kind of trends to a client, do you often come
Mhm.
with suggestions on um, concepts, or is that like a second stage, or um, to allow the client to go away and come up with their own solutions? Like,
Mhm.
what's the kind of split there between, or is it different every time, or what's the sort of process like?
Yeah, it's kind of different every time. A lot of the times we will come with recommendations if we feel like we have a good insight into like what can be done in order to fix it.
Yeah, yeah,
Sometimes we're, we just have to be honest and be like, hey, we're really not sure what needs to be done in order to fix this. We need to do some more studying in order to really get to the root of the problem here. But we
yeah,
definitely bring recommendations to the table sometimes if we feel like we can make a solid one.
yeah, yeah. I have some ideas in mind, like
Mhm.
from, but that's because I've been thinking about it for 3 days because I did read the feedback as it came in. So yeah,
Yeah.
fool on me for doing that. Um, yeah, where do you want to go next with this? Because I remember you saying that you wanted to look into the how and the why on these questions. Like, is there, or are you happy with that? I know there's like 20. How many questions are there?
Oh, survey questions? I think there's like 14. I think there was one other one that I wanted to touch on a
Okay,
little
yeah,
bit. Um, I forget what it was. Oh no. Always good to ask like familiarity with the genre. I wanted to call out as well that like typically this is something that you would do in like a screener survey instead of
yeah,
like asking
profiling.
afterwards.
Yeah.
We just ended up doing it afterwards. Working on that tight indie budget, you know how it is.
Hmm. Yeah, I remember being like, "Oh wow, it doubles the cost if I put
Yep.
some filters in just to filter out players." I was like, "It's fine. We're gonna learn something good either way and save literally 50% of the cost."
Yeah.
Uh,
It's
which
like,
is my
you really
choice,
have to
not
weigh
necessarily.
sometimes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's like, how worth it is it? If we're talking about like a big budget, like AAA game, right, that has this money to burn, like they're gonna be like, oh yeah, like it makes more sense to do it in the
hmm
beginning. That way we have that data like right off the gate and like we
yeah.
don't
So
have
to
to like have them biased at all.
yeah, and for us to understand those biases, we just added it to the questionnaire at
Mhm.
the end so that we could
Yeah,
sort of take a look at a person's profile and understand that player's yeah sort of like
yeah.
state of play. Yeah, cool.
And this was the other question I wanted to touch on briefly as well. Just based on your playtest, how likely is it that you would continue to play this game? This gives us a really good benchmark for how our players are feeling, like at the end of their playtest, asking them, would you continue to play this on your own or would you not? And that's something we really got to look closely at and make sure we're striving to get those numbers up as well. So we got a couple of ones that are like, I might play it. I think one of the somewhat likelies was like, yeah, maybe if the game is on sale, sure. So like no preface with like how much the game would cost whatsoever, even if it was free. They're like, depends on how much it costs. That's
Yeah,
always
yeah,
going to be a factor in some people's minds. And it's good to know. It's like why we leave these open for additional comments as well. That's good to know so we can frame their selection in that light instead of just being like, well, they kind of had fun. It's like, no, it seemed like they had fun, but it could be that they're in a tight budget or like they had fun, but depending on the price, that really affects like how they're spending their money and if they
yeah,
really
yeah.
feel like they had a ton of fun, like
Yeah,
maybe
as
they
a
wouldn't spend.
designer, I look at that as I value the I I put more value on the money than I do on this game. This game wasn't
Mhm.
that fun.
Yeah.
Especially with the sure, I guess I'm gonna take that as a no, basically.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna look at that and be like, yeah, that's not that's you're not giving me any confidence there.
Mhm.
P2. Um,
Yeah, and we did have one person as well who said like, "Oh yeah, I definitely want to play it as soon as they releases." That's the person who like tends to play these sorts of games. So that's really good to know too that like someone who is within the genre and like plays these games a lot is very interested in continuing to play more of this
yeah,
game. And that's really good news for us. We just kind of have to brush it up a little bit to make sure those other players outside of this genre, we might be able to get them interested too.
yeah. I'm sort of in that difficult position where I've also seen six or so different YouTube videos of people who've gravitated towards the game naturally and have
Mhm.
been uh, playing it of their own volition and enjoying or not or getting confused in certain places. So I see the patterns and we can see a lot of that through as well, this feedback, which is good because the general touch on the game seems to be the same. People are getting confused at certain points and not understanding certain
Mhm.
things. But generally, the outcome or sort of the peak end of that experience is that they're coming out at the end going like, yeah, that was cool. I liked that. I came here to get something and I got what I expected and I left feeling like somewhat satisfied. And I hope that this game does well and adds more and does things right. So that's more like that P5 player. And it's in the sense in my head is that discourse where either I polish away all the frictions to build something that appeals more to an audience who may have never clicked the button on Steam to even look at the game because it's not within their wheelhouse, and I diminish the value for the people that would, who were like, I loved solving that whole thing myself. That was cool. Like, there's literally a
Mhm.
comment on Steam right now on the community page that some dude's like, I actually really
Interesting.
loved that you treated me like an adult gamer and let me figure that out. Which is just one person, but
Mhm.
like it that is kind of what I was going for. However, I have some really cool ideas that still fit the universe and hopefully solve some of these onboarding problems because I think that's the biggest one I've seen so far. And then
Mhm.
getting lost.
Yeah. I
I've
think
got a
it's
question
less
in
the
chat.
issue of
Oh, sorry.
oh, sorry,
Yeah,
go ahead.
finish your thought, and
Oh, yeah.
I'll address this chat in a second.
I was just gonna say it's definitely less the issue of like I feel lost because that is like the puzzle aspect of the game. It's more of like I don't know what my purpose is here. Like I'm just
Mm,
kind of wandering around aimlessly waiting for something to happen. So having that initial onboarding, I think, is what would really sell this thing.
yeah, yeah, because then yeah, it seems to be very consistent the experience of sort of like dropping off the interest. Okay, so
Hmm.
this chat here, yeah, it's been a while since I've done a live stream. There is
Ooh.
chat, and it says, "Could I know what is the objective of the stream?" So, hello, Noor. We are reviewing the UI UX playtest data and taking a behind the scenes look at the process of breaking down sort of video, voice, and questionnaire based feedback around a game that we previously built on stream. Over 20 days, we built a demo of a game that is going to Steam Next Fest next week. And we got to a point where we're interested in the first time user experience, onboarding feedback, just general touch of just a handful. We took six players from a platform that you pay and you get all this data back. And Kayleigh's here, who has provided all of this data in a nice format that allows us to dig into that feedback and come out with some action points. Ideally, that's the objective for me at the end, is to come out with some action points. Kayleigh has mentioned that typically this will be in like a slideshow format. It will be a lot more easy to digest. It would
Hmm.
be presented with potentially some solutions if we feel that those solutions are like something that we have a lot of experience with having seen those kind of solutions for certain problems. Um, and so for the last, where are we at? We technically have half an hour until 10:30. Where would you like to take this next?
Oh. So essentially the two sections I have left are like summary takeaways, and then we can also do like a nitty-gritty dive into some like interesting points
Yeah,
of friction.
yeah. I see some stars down there. I'm excited for those
Oh
too.
yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let's look at the main takeaways then.
Okay. Starting with the main takeaways. So essentially, like this section here would be mostly what we focus on in our slideshow for the client.
Mm,
It would very much be formatted a little bit nicer than this, but this is my in progress notes. You get the behind the scenes section of this.
mhm.
So right now I've just kind of split everything up into like major and minor takeaways, and then also like negative and positive, because there were a lot of positive things we saw happening in the game and all of our players' playthroughs as well. So we definitely want to call those out to you and our hypothetical client in this situation as well. But we already touched a little bit on just players needing more guidance out the gate, a couple instances of those. I also wanted to call out one specific as well, where player 3 in our test was somewhat confused about how the anomalies were triggering as well.
Mm.
Whether they were like spawning when she like walked for a certain amount of time, or like discovered an anomaly in another room and then she couldn't find the one in the next room until she had found that previous one, or if it was just like find the computers in all the rooms. They exist right out the gate. You can find them no matter what steps you've taken in this run or what you've done so far, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that could be an interesting point of clarity to provide to the player as well. Do you want to talk on that a little bit? Because I don't even know myself this.
Yeah. So looking at the first point, well, in
Mm,
the general point is guidance out the gate, and in the initial design of the game, the intent was to say, okay, I would like to create a user experience that doesn't have UI, that allows you to figure out the objectives and explore the space and discover and find these anomalies, and then be surprised by them, move through them. And then eventually
mhm,
I started to design in some gameplay loop where I was like, oh, and then you close them, and then there's 3 to close, and then you move on, and then there's some escapes that you can start figuring out. And so all this layer cake sort of adds on. But the main thing I'm always seeing there is quite frequently being unsure about the goal. It's never
mhm,
explicitly mentioned because I'm trying to give the player a long leash, which I have a concept for a solution. And then we've got that
ooh,
the facility itself, the game itself, is set in a winding, surreal interpretation of an office room's environment where there's lots of corridors, lots of doors that are closed, lots of repeated motifs in terms of like windows and desks and things like that you're running through. And so you never really have a point of context for your position because there's no major points of interest. The points of interest are the anomalies that you're technically
mhm,
like searching for, but other than that you're getting lost in these white corridors, right? So then there's a lot of assumptions being created by the player during that travel, and it could be because there's a long period of travel, and so the ratio between the goal, which is finding the room, and the actual like
mhm,
moving around the facility are heavily weighted towards moving around the facility. So there's all this space for frustration and friction where it's like, you know what, like I'm making assumptions as I play now. Like, am I in the same place? Have I missed the thing? Am I supposed to open a door? What am I supposed to do? There's too much time between the beats, possibly. Um, that's kind of where my head's at, and so I do have some ideas of what I might do to in world address it without
mhm.
like major UI on screen. Um, I'm always open to the conversation about UI on screen, um, but and there is a context for it in the game, but it kind of ruins the reveal that
Yeah.
you're and I mean, if anyone's watching and you've seen the streams, the concept is you're an AI trapped in your own hallucination, and so
Oh.
um, and anyway, so there's a bunch of lore and stuff hidden within all of the notes that allow players who are into this kind of game, who are going to get sticky into the weeds, to air and talk about that if they find it interesting. If they don't, it's no
Mhm.
major loss. That's why I decided to try and take a month to do it, right? Rather than like 6 months and it'd be, oh, this is my magnum
Yeah.
opus, and then everyone would be like, don't get it.
And I mean, I just want to say as well, like it looks great for like a month of work. I did not know you spent like 20 days you said on this thing. That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, and a couple of weekends between that. But yeah, the streaming was started on the August 13th, and the demo was done on September 13th or
Yeah.
something. And then
Oh,
I've
that's
spent a little
killer.
bit of extra time, and I've still got a little bit of time. I've got 5 days between now and the Steam Next Fest to make that first onboarding experience a little bit better, tighten it up a little bit, and maybe try and illustrate that story a bit more. Because people who do get it, and I've seen players play it and be like, "Am I an AI in a facility where we fired everyone?" And I'm like, "Yes,
Oh,
you are." And they're like, "Is this
yeah.
a narrative on AI taking?" And I was like, "Yep." you're
Oh,
getting the narrative, and
got
so
it.
they're like, oh my god, I love this, because they hate
Yeah.
AI. That person who was playing on stream, they're like absolutely anti AI. Obviously, I'm not, um, and that's the whole narrative anyway. It's like a sub tone about that stuff. So they got it, and that's like my perfect player. They were playing, and within 5 minutes, they were like, "Oh, I know what's going on," because they actually read
Wow,
it,
that's
right?
impressive.
They actually
Yeah.
read the lore. It's wild. It's wild that players are very different like that, and so that's the player that I really want to aim at. Anyway, but also I do want to make a very nice onboarding experience. So, moving on from that was a long bit of me talking. I've got some messages here from chat again. I didn't know that
Ooh.
you created all this within less than a month. I thought it was like over 5 months with graphics alone. No, yeah, the whole process is shown on stream. There are some stuff that I do off cam over the weekends, just sort of like decompressing from the week and doing things that are not great for streaming, like writing a lot of lore,
Mm.
deciding where secrets are hidden. That's more of a personal thing. It's like I'm going to hide some stuff in here, um, and that sort of stuff doesn't necessarily translate to great streaming content. But a lot of the major features, like how the teleporting works, how the lore is actually the UMG and the UI is created as a tech piece that can be modular and scalable throughout the game. Those kind of development processes and then creating the maps, a lot of that was also done on stream. Um, and yeah, it started in August and it ended in around September, and now we're in October and sort of just wrapping up and getting it shipped, which is good for me to know because I was like, as soon as I'm done with this, I'm going to ship it, and it's like, no, it takes a while to go through that process as well, of actually shipping it. But let's move on to point number two, sticky note
Yes.
system. I added that like super last minute, um, thinking in my head like, oh yeah, this is of course going to help people with getting lost. Um, but I don't think I ever like. Well, I tried to show the player subtly like how to do it by making them
Mhm.
interact with the wall on a piece that says notices, but it obviously wasn't enough in the player's face, and they sort of just wanted to go explore. Like that was their major like
Oh.
realization. They were like, big hole in the wall, that's new, and they run straight through it, and they went straight past the like prompt to like click the wall to place a sticky note. And additionally, there might be some other stuff. Let's take a look. What did we find?
Yes. So I would say I don't think anyone found the sticky note system via that method. Everyone that
Mhm.
I watched found the sticky notes because they were trying to open a door, interact with another object, like do something where the mouse had like that little like
No
UI preview
context.
that pops up. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
that popped up and they clicked on it and then a sticky note would appear. I didn't have any players like getting very frustrated with this, but like it feels like it's going to be a point of friction if you like there to me there weren't like a ton of areas right now where it's like, oh, it's important that you interact with an object in order to like do this thing, right? If that is a major thing that's going to happen in the future though, I'm definitely predicting that that's going to be like a major point of issue. It's where people are like, "Oh man, I'm trying to open this door and I just keep placing sticky notes instead. Like there's sticky notes everywhere and I'm frustrated."
Yes.
And with that, my only thought process was like, "Hey, maybe we should just put it on a different key." Like I don't know if there's anything bound to right click right now.
Yeah,
Off the top of
yeah,
my
yeah,
head.
yeah. I know what you're saying. Yeah,
Um
there is,
but just
but
something else.
it's a zoom.
But
It's a little
yeah.
zoom
Oh,
thing.
okay, that's what it
Um,
is. I couldn't remember what Zoom was.
it's just a common
Um,
thing in these games. Is like
yeah.
because almost the players who play this are actually almost like I've seen this behavior and I didn't think about it until I watched players play the game. But like they stop, they zoom. You can tell they're taking screenshots of the game. They're like positioning themselves in
Mhm.
corners and like taking. It's almost like they're a photographer in this slow walking sim liminal space thing, and then
Yeah.
they're using that zoom to like create like angles and I don't know, it's weird. Um, or just to see something in the distance and be like, what is that? And sort of like question
Mhm.
the meaning behind things. But
Yeah.
one second
And
now.
I think my instinct with that would be like I think that the sticky notes will probably be more important than Zoom. I'm not super
Yeah,
familiar with the
yeah,
liminal space genre. So I don't know if it's like Zoom is typically right click for those and we don't want to like stray too far from that if that's what our like core audience is going to be used to. but also
Yeah.
like moving zoom to like Z or something and just having
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
some sort of puzzle or interaction where it's like,
Yeah.
press Z to zoom and you need to zoom up on something in order to get like a
I definitely
password
don't.
or what
I
have
definitely
you.
have lots of space for keys
Yeah.
because yeah, it's also on gamepad and it works fine on gamepad. There's like literally every bumper is free,
Oh
and
yeah.
I think all face buttons except the left face button are free as well. So, and all the D pads are free. Like there's very few features in the game, right? So definitely capable of moving it. One thing I was wondering was like when I noticed people start using them. Um, I was at first really afraid as a developer that people were just going to start spraying these sticky notes everywhere and sort of ruining the liminal feeling of the facility. So I got worried about that. But then like
Mhm.
they put one down and they're like, all right, and then they never use it ever again anyway. And I'm like,
Oh,
is the
really?
sticky note system even worth it? Did you notice anyone actually using it for effectively, or like did they recur like use them repeatedly at all? I didn't
Yeah.
notice that myself.
I definitely would say I have that in one of my positives. Like I had several folks who were using the sticky notes and they were super helpful for them to be able to like keep track of where they were.
That's
I
good
know
to
there
know.
was yes, absolutely. We'd love to see that. There was at least one person who like kind of forgot about the sticky notes and then like
Yeah,
found them later and was like, "Oh man, I should have been using this the whole time. Why was I not doing that?"
yeah,
So that like speaks to that person. They just kind of forgot about it, and maybe with like a longer playthrough, they would be more apt to use the system a little bit more. But I definitely saw folks using them. I know there was the one person using it to like breadcrumb and mark like where they had been. I saw another person, it was in like the very large sand area where there's a bunch of desks kind of scattered around.
yeah.
They were looking for the computer to close the anomaly on all of those desks. So they were using the sticky notes to mark which
Mark the
desks they
desk.
had already looked at. Yeah. So unfortunately, they spent quite a long time doing that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
in like
That's
that case, I still think that's super helpful for them, right?
yeah. It's wild though because I'm trying to create the association that a very particular looking asset within the game is the
Hmm.
required interaction and is the active powered thing. That was like my only guiding light when I created the mechanic of like I need there to actually be a gameplay reason or thing to do within these environments, because the game started as
Hmm.
like I just want to use my asset library and develop some surreal environments and allow players to walk through and enjoy them, and then it slowly evolved into, well, you know what would be better than just my reference material, my inspirations, which were like Pools game and and a couple of others like Liminal Core and Dream Core, where it's just a walking sim and you're just going through and discovering soft narrative through world building. I was like, I actually want a
Hmm.
mechanic where a player can explore and then have a what if and put rooms together and find an escape because of lore that they've read. If they're really into it,
Yeah.
they'll figure those things out. And so I was like, in my head, I was like, okay, I need to close these anomalies down. Otherwise, when I have massive anomalies, which I want to have, like a big forest,
Hmm.
I
Oh,
want you to be able to close it down so that when you're going through the facility, you don't have to walk back through that just to get back to the other end if you need to. So I was like, okay, I'll allow the player to close them. And that will actually double as a way to finish a section of the game and then move on to the next phase. Um,
okay.
and I just picked a desk. I was like, you know what? A desk makes sense. Like, this is a
Hmm.
working place. They summoned the anomaly through some software, and it's very intendedly not um, verbose, like this is
Yeah.
how that works. It's just sci-fi, right? It's like, oh yeah, they use this desk and it opens the anomaly, and so to close it you have to go back to the desk. But if they're not picking up on that and they're looking around every single desk, or they're literally looking, and I've seen this, looking directly at it and it says the words close anomaly, and then they just go, don't know what to do, and then walk away. And that might all be solved by like a much better onboarding at the beginning of the game, and it should be, because it'll be really explicit. What I've got in mind will be really explicit. Um, which
Hmm.
let's take a look at the minors, and then I'll sort of see what you think about the concept I've got brewing.
Yeah. So in terms of minor stuff, the one that I saw quite frequently was when so there's that room where you teleport to after you close an anomaly, that's got like all the computers and the sticky notes and everything on it already. I noticed a lot that players were walking towards the wrong door quite frequently, expecting it to open for them and then going, "Oh shoot, wrong door," and turning around. So while this doesn't create like a big point of frustration for a lot of players. My question to that was like, does this door have a core
Purpose.
purpose? Yeah, is like, is it going to open up later in the game and then it's this like, oh, crazy moment? Because otherwise, like, yeah, it makes sense to have players like kind of bumping into that blocker quite frequently. But if it doesn't, like, can we just close that and like just get rid of that door so it's just a flat wall and then
Mhm.
one exit
It
so
used to
we
be,
just
yeah.
avoid
It
that.
used to be. And then for like environmental
Oh.
balancing, I'd put it back. But it used to be
Oh.
a white wall. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, I chose as an artistic design. I was like, I want to have a door on either end to suggest that this is a throughfare.
Mhm.
But yeah, it used to be a black. It used to just be a blank wall, which absolutely there is no purpose for it. If it's just causing friction, that's really good to know. It's
Mhm.
a super easy tweak. Um, I just I just stick the wall back where it was. Uh, so that's cool. Yeah, that will reduce obviously confusion as well, and it leads players to water. Right? It's like
Mhm.
go that way, go.
Yeah. It's just it makes the path a little bit more straightforward because like even though the door doesn't open, it's like it's that little bit of like kind of reward is what I want to say is like congrats like you went through this confusing maze with anomalies everywhere. This is your reward. You have one path forward. Good job. You did it. Like it just makes that like easier and kind of lets them have that like exhale moment a little bit more of like I did it. I'm back where I know where I am, and then I can continue forward, you know?
Hmm. I like it. Yeah, yeah. Okay, sweet.
And
Oh
then just like the other oh, sorry, did you want to add something else?
no, no, no. I just saw
Okay.
a message in chat, but it,
Oh.
it's just
Uh,
talking about lagging games out, which is
ah,
if you've ever seen Let's Game It Out, that is a great uh, game testing YouTube channel. I call it game testing. It's
mhm.
entertainment, but it's pushing games to their limits, and it's really fun. Anyway,
Yes. And then just the last point of minor friction that we saw was with the discoveries page. I saw quite a few players having some confusion when they got to like, you go through those like sliding doors, you walk up to the main computer, post your first anomaly or whatever. And they were confused as to why there still wasn't anything on the discoveries page. I wasn't sure if this was just like it hadn't been implemented yet, or if there was a reason that like oh, I've explored this anomaly, I've closed it. It's still not marking as like completed on this page, or like I don't have information to display here, was like the big confusion from folks. Is like, why isn't this filling out?
yeah. Um, there's a title to that section called Lore,
Okay.
and so there's discoveries, and there's the lore discoveries and the item
Mm.
discoveries. Every room has a lore discovery, and if you discover it and you read it, A, it alludes to the history of the facility, the purpose of it, and B, it alludes to escapes that you can execute within the game. There's like 6 or 7 escapes. And so I tend to try and position those lore in places that I know the player is going to see it and pass
Okay.
through it. Sometimes in some levels they break the rule, so there's like you'll have like 10 out of 12 discoveries in these 2 levels. You're like, I need to go back and I need to look for it, and they actually hold the secret to an escape, right? And so once you've got those discoveries, you can go back to that screen, you can read them, you can just review them.
Mm.
It's like a codex, and so obviously that's not clear.
Yeah, I
That's
don't know if
fair.
it just wasn't like I think people were discovering some like little drops around the map, but maybe it wasn't the correct pieces of lore. Does it not trigger for everything?
Um, there's only one lore in each anomaly. There's a couple
Mm,
of random lore pieces that are
okay.
not part of the discoveries tab that
Maybe
are
it was
in
them.
like the control room and a couple of other places.
Yeah.
And they're just world building snippets. But anything that's in an anomaly, unless it's a bug, when you read it, it should become a discovery. Um,
Okay.
so I'll keep an eye on that and I'll go and double check and I'll test it out that it's actually working. And then that's one of the things that I can't put in the concept of what I've got for onboarding. Um, but I can try and make it much clearer to find a lore piece and then maybe
Mm-hmm.
show something on screen that's like lore discovered, and then there's this linguistic link to like
Ooh.
there's a page called discoveries. I discovered a lore 1 of 20. Cool. Okay, now I've made an association. So I've got a note on my notepad here that's like
Okay.
I should improve that.
Yeah,
They
I
finished
think
the
that would
playtest
help.
before the yeah. I
And
have
I think
a go ahead. Sorry.
the other thing, just kind of along with that, is like I think maybe it was that they were discovering the ones not as directly associated with the anomalies. And so they were like finding the general lore ones, and then nothing was changing within that tab as well. So then they were like,
Yeah.
but I found a thing and it's not showing up here. So clearly something is going wrong, you know?
Mm. I tried to make
So it's
sure
like,
that I didn't place any random lore. Oh, there is one in the janitor's closet that is like there's the primary and then there's the secondary lore,
yeah,
like a second lore that is not lore. Okay, yeah. So there's probably some things I can do there too. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. That seems to be all of it then.
yeah.
And then
And
there's
of course,
some
we got to talk about the positives.
yeah. And then I've got a question from chat as well, so we can go over
Oh,
that.
okay. Yeah, I can just touch on these really quickly, and then we'll get to the chat one for sure. But just wanted to say, like, definitely props on the atmosphere. All the players were remarking on how, like, oh, I'm so creeped out, you know, like, the satirical humor as well, with all the like the posters and the voice lines from the speakerphone as well. Lots of people were getting a good laugh out of those and being like, "Ah, no, I disagree with what you're saying. This is not right," and commenting on all sorts of little things like that. So I definitely feel like with those two combined, you did a great job setting up the world overall and making
Hmm.
people really feel being in this office room.
Yeah, that's good. Because now it's just the toss up between leading me nicely, segueing into this question in chat.
Hmm.
Now it's just the toss up, like we spoke about a little bit on this earlier, about polishing it to the point that there's no friction of discovery, exploration, and the the sort of dopamine you get from doing it yourself. That we mentioned, some of my players that I've seen have said like, "Thank you for treating me like an adult. I just played a game that was a puzzle, and I solved the puzzle, and that was cool. And I loved that player, and I loved the other player as well, who was like, "Is this a game about this moral story?" And I was like, "Yes, I didn't spoon feed it to you, and you get it." And now as a developer, like I loved that. I was like, "Yes,
Hmm.
I've caught someone's imagination naturally, like through sort of environmental storytelling and a couple of other things." And then the toss up between like polishing it too much to be like it's not a thing. Now, the question in chat is, I worry that some of the fixes to reduce the friction may detract from the design intent, and how are you ensuring that the unique and special aspects are preserved? So here's my suggestion for the onboarding experience.
Yeah.
You enter a room that is similar to what we see in the example of the game, and I'll bring up the video and just play it silently in the background.
Welcome to the Offices of Productivity
If
Analysis.
I mute this, there we go. So you'd come into a room that has a sort of unsettling, foreboding scale and size that's just not quite right. Right, it's off.
Okay.
And in the center is a chair with a small wheeled cabinet with a single CRT TV on it. And so you walk up to the screen and you interact and you sit on the chair, and a little instructional video that welcomes you to your workplace plays with the PA announcement telling you about the Offices of Productivity Analysis and basically the user journey that you're about to experience and what your job is, and highlighting very specifically like, this is the desk that you're looking for, this is what
Hmm.
you need to do. And so there's some design around that short video that needs to be like 30 seconds maybe. I need to see like what a good length of time is. Short as possible, but also thematic, right? Whereas it feels
Yeah.
like that kind of video you had. I worked at a warehouse once, and I had this like just like that instructional video where it's like a person walking on a screen and being like, "Hey, this is blah blah
And they
blah
always
about
look.
yeah." So
They
what do you
always
think
look really
about that? Yeah,
cool.
that's in world, right? So
Yeah.
the other concept I had as well was more permanent. Maybe accompanying this is in that first lobby room having something like um Portal does this actually, whereas
Mhm.
almost muted like graphics that are like the job of the day, right? So it's like go through place, find the desk, interact, close, repeat. Couple of things on a poster in that first room that kind of describes it, so that maybe that gets a little bit reinforced,
Mhm.
um, or something like that. Yeah, that's where I'm kind of at with that. I would love to add, especially the almost Fallout. I think Fallout did something very similar um, in the introduction of their game, where it's like a
Yeah.
CRT monitor sort of vibe. Um, okay, so that was one major one. One thing, just to go back to this question on how am I ensuring to keep the unique and special aspects. So the discovery of escapes, the discovery of the narrative, those kinds of things. If you're a player who's not interested in reading lore, or you're not there to explore this whole space and sort of soak it in, then there's a as a luckily as an indie who's not working on a mainstream game, I am actually like I'm not financially burdened to try and make it as least friction as possible.
Mhm.
I want to satisfy a niche audience and have them appreciate it. So some of those things I'm going to keep exactly the way they are.
Yeah.
As for players coming into a open playtest and sort of like just bouncing off of it, that I'm really not happy with, right? So that's where I'll lean a little bit more to reduce friction. But the main experience, like the core, the forever loop of the rest of the game, that those bits are probably somewhat retain as they are, and then smaller interactions like we spoke about with the way that post-its work, the way that discoveries are not understood. Um, Hopefully, the main thing I want to solve is obviously the guidance as to what you're supposed to be doing, and I think that maybe
Mhm.
then some of these major things will get resolved. We are at half past the hour. I don't know if you have 5 minutes and we can go over the star ones quickly. But I
Yeah.
see one that's like we're still at 0 of 15. That's
Yes.
not great.
Um, yeah, let's touch on a couple of these. I'm all good to keep going. And yeah, we can just kind of jump around through a couple of the ones I've starred in general.
Hmm.
But yeah, I guess let's start with this one because this is the one that you saw first, right? This was a moment right after this player had completed their first anomaly, and then they look up at that like board that says, "Oh, here's how many that you've completed," and they saw it was 0 out of 15, and they're like,
Yeah.
"But I just did one. I don't understand what happened here."
Yes.
Um, so it that could be handled in like a couple different ways of like maybe we make it say 1 out of 15, but then does that discourage players from going back to that original anomaly that they saw because it I assume it would also get like marked as complete in the computer then as well. Like, is that something we don't want them to do? Or if there's like some sort of separate anomaly kind of involved with that like
I'm thinking of
CCTV
I'm just gonna
setup.
maybe just obfuscate it until
Mhm.
after the full first time experience. So the first time experience for me in my head, I specifically put in that like one particular room that illustrates a lot of the aspects of the game, lore, setting, and tries to not allow the player to get lost. But I keep noticing
Yeah.
every player goes in, goes cool room. What's on the other side? I don't want to miss anything, so they walk through the other end, and then find a brick wall, and then come back, and I'm like, okay, it's not terrible. But it's not great either. And then they look at the big red door and they go, a key card, and then they go back into the facility and go, where's the red key card? And so there's all these little things that I'm like,
Mm.
even the Fatui room has so many like suggestions in it that the player just goes off on adventures that they make assumptions for. So there might be some changes I need to do there. But then the Fatui sort of goes on to like, and now here's your first like real 3 levels. And so
Yeah.
even at that point, I could just remove the 0 of 15 until they complete that, and then they come in as 3 of 15. Okay, cool. What about the first one? Don't worry about it. Look, you're making progress. Hopefully that resolves it a little bit, and doesn't require any major coding. It's just an obfuscation of information until maybe a little bit later on.
Yeah, I think that
Um,
might help a little bit, just so they
yeah.
don't get that initial like, I just did one. What do you mean I'm at 0? I'm so confused.
Alternatively, I just turn the Fatui into like, I'm going to teach you about interactions and a little bit of setting, and I'm going to like theme, right? And it's going to just be an interaction with that computer that teaches you about your job. And maybe there is an anomaly involved somewhere along the
Mhm.
route, things like that. I could maybe change the design up a little bit there, or so that when you come to that first computer, there is like a particular like start orientation training, and you like
Yes.
click the button, and then instead of coming out into the lobby, you come out maybe into an elevator, the elevator into just like a room, and you're like, oh, this is the orientation room. And then there's like a whole bunch of stuff that maybe just teaches you about the game there, rather than getting them to do like one little loop where they walk through the corridors and then find an anomaly. And there's a bunch of questions around the red key card. They often go through the other side of the room. I'm not sure. That could be a
Yeah.
problem.
I definitely think like in world, like that sets up everything to make a little bit more sense versus just like hiding that and then like having that step maybe a little later on where it's like, wait, what didn't I do 4? But I also know that we're dealing
Yeah,
with a
true.
tight deadline on this one. So
Yeah. It's
any
not
small
too big
changes,
of a lift. Like with all the systems
yeah.
that I've prepared, it's not too big of a lift to change it so that when you first click that computer, it's going to open you to a particular, the elevator opens to a particular scene. In fact, yeah, that is featured in the game. So it's like there's one particular ending that opens the door to a desert, and you're just like, oh, I'm outdoors. So I have the features and the tools to create rooms really easily. So there's promise there. Definitely something to think about. Um, Tries to place
I
a
really
sticky
like
note
this
on the
one.
camera. That's quite fun.
Yeah. I was so impressed with this player when they did that because they were very creeped out by the camera like following them around the room. And then as soon as they figured out the sticky note system, they were like, "Well, I want to cover his vision. Like, I don't want him looking at me."
Did
So
that
I
actually
was like,
work?
maybe that's like it didn't work. They
Yeah,
couldn't
yeah, yeah.
reach up
Because
high
it's
enough. It like
yeah,
placed on
yeah.
the wall
It's
underneath
also
them.
a super optimized, non-colliding, non-actor
Yeah.
based, like completely only a graphic. Um, but interesting. Yeah,
Yeah,
could be
it's just one of
something
those
there.
moments that, like, we could add, like, a little fun thing into that, and that could be a fun discovery for those players who do try to, like,
Yeah.
stretch their boundaries a little bit and say, like, "What can I do to just
Mm,
mess up everything?" I would say that's the closest to anyone got to, like, vandalism. No one was really messing around with, like, placing sticky notes everywhere like you talked about earlier, like,
mm.
that was the only thing I saw someone try to do where they're like, "I am wanting to prevent this camera from staring at me, so I'm going to use what methods I have in order to do that," and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's the same note here about that one anomaly thing. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I just noticed one here suggestion. Maybe have the VO lady suggest what you're supposed to do. She does. Obviously not verbosely enough, but every 90 or 120 seconds,
Uh-huh.
so every 60 to 90 seconds, I think it is, and maybe that's too often, is a lore VO, right? And then the second one, if you haven't closed an anomaly, is you should be closing an anomaly. Go do that. Um, and so sometimes I'll see players be like, "Yeah, I'm trying. I just don't know where to
Yeah,
go."
I saw that a
Um,
lot.
and so that was how far I got with like trying to provide a breadcrumb for the player when they need a bit of redirection, uh, where she says it. To the point, funnily, where if it's queued up and you've just closed an anomaly, she'll say it to you while you're in that room that you've closed. It says closed, and she's like, "Close the anomalies," and you're like, I just did." Uh, So there's like a little
That's
bug
funny.
there, but maybe I could be more
Yeah.
verbose with it. There's so many other things as well. I think we could dig into maybe in another session sometime. But like, I'm rather concerned about the maybe the length of this facility in terms of the corridors part.
Mhm.
There's I have some suspicions that it could be shorter and still have the same experience of kind of soft getting lost, but like a little bit more directed, just by having
Yeah.
fewer corridors, essentially.
And I think this very large sand room was the most troublesome for this player in
Is
specific.
this
We just
is
like
this the one with all the fallen panels, or is it the one with like the cabinets?
cabinets, I believe.
Right, yeah, I've seen it on both actually. Both desert levels
Okay.
are like
Oh,
huge,
interesting.
and players just go around like
Yeah.
not following
Unfortunately,
the points of interest that I laid out. They
yeah,
just
I
immediately
think
go like, "I'm going to look for desks."
like with this player particularly, I think this might be one of like the lore voiceover moments you were talking about. It said something like the desert wing illustrates the danger of wasted time or something like that. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so this player took that as meaning she needed to keep moving and not stop. So she
Right,
just like
yeah.
kept
I might
running no
just
matter
remove
what.
that voice. So that voice line was just in
Yeah.
there to be like at any time you'll hear a voice line that tells you about the desert wing. There's another one that tells you about the graveyard wing. There's another
Okay.
one that tells you about something else. And they're just there to build upon the world lore.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, if you get them in the room or you get them in the wrong room, which I've seen before as well, and people are like, "Well, I'm not in the graveyard. Why are you telling me about the graveyard?
I don't
I'm in the
understand.
fishing village." So
Uh-huh.
I might just remove those, and they're quite long as well. Like they're quite long lore extracts that just detract and confuse. And there's actually a lot of them, I think, in terms of that sort of stuff, where it's like she'll say something about patience, and a player will just stop and stand still and be like, "Do I need to be still? Then are you
Yeah,
prompting me to
yeah.
do something?" And I'm like, "Damn it, no." Uh,
Yeah,
so I
that's
think with the
definitely how she
onboarding bit, maybe we'll be fine. Hopefully, we'll be fine. It does need
yeah.
some reinforcement throughout the game still, where it's like, um, remember your training. You need to find the desk. That I might just put on posters around the facility, maybe even.
Ooh.
There's so much more in design decisions than I would ever have thought about without listening into a podcast like this. Um, yeah. Um, when you've got intents and you've got there's a behavior that you want the player to exhibit, but there's also an experience that you want them to discover and for me at least. And then there's also like you mentioned earlier, Kayleigh, is like there needs to be those times where a player has that dopamine of like I did the right thing.
Mhm.
My monkey brain is super tickled right now because I went the right direction. And so little things like just removing a door that it doesn't need to be there. It's just a set dressing purpose, and it's only leading to players having a minorly negative experience in that case. But like, it's still everything you can do to. I like to
Mhm.
think of games as like roller coasters or museums, and so my game is a museum. It's not a run and gun shooter. It's
Yeah.
uh, it's a game where you stop and you look and you engage with it slowly. And so um, if you try and play it as a roller coaster and you're running around and you just get lost, you're gonna have a bad time. So I need to kind of like tell players more and through the game interactions that like don't worry about rushing.
Mhm.
So there's ways I can set the expectation basically through that first onboarding experience as well. And setting the expectation there might help a lot of the feedback and experience, right? Because a lot of it seems to just be like, I spent a lot of time running around in circles. I've got a lack of
Yeah.
direction. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. And it's like that difference between I'm having a good time trying to figure out where I am and like where the next anomaly is versus I don't know or I don't know why I'm here.
Yeah. There's another one here that I just spotted that's like this particular room isn't
Hmm.
weird. It's just a room
Yeah, yeah.
that's an anomaly. And yeah, like in the first onboarding room, it explains the law in a note that's on the table that a lot of people miss, that just says, we've moved all regular offices into anomalies to save space on the office floor. So now the office facility is just corridors and doors, and the actual like big rooms that we used to make are now just like pocketed in alternate dimensions. And players who read that go like, oh wow, that's so cool, I'm excited to see what's next. And then they go through the game and they're like, oh, this is weird, this is weird, this is weird. um but yeah, that particular room is like the most office looking room you could get, and actually
Yeah.
just looks like another room. So maybe I just need to do something weird with it, like the ceiling is 5 times taller.
Oh,
Just something to make it like, this is weird. Or there's fire
yeah.
alarms everywhere, because that particular room is about um, testing productivity under a fire alarm. And you're not supposed to leave, because if you've ever worked in an office building where the fire alarm goes off a lot, nobody leaves.
Oh,
And so it's a joke. There's a joke on a
oh
note
no.
somewhere about that, where it's like, we've trained the employees to not leave the building when the fire alarm goes off, to carry on
Fire alarm.
working, and actually their productivity raises by 10%. So now we just put the
That's
alarm on
terrible.
purpose.
Oh my gosh, that's insane.
It's just a little joke about that. There's lots of
Like
jokes
it's
like
fine.
that throughout the game, but you've got a finite dealing. How do you decide what to do? Whether it can be an expensive solution that feels amazing versus a quick fix, and what items fall on the chopping room floor. Um, I There's two ways I look at stack ranking these kinds of feedback. First, on sometimes on frequency, and sometimes on impact to the experience in general. So um, here we're seeing both. There's a high frequency, high impact misunderstanding or miscommunication, or lack of communication of the core loop to the player. Um, that some players who want to explore. So that was a question in chat, by the way, for anyone listening. Um, that sometimes there's players who engage with that mystery, and more often than not, we're currently seeing in this group of players that they're not engaging with that mystery, and it's just not clear. And in fact, a lot of players I've seen as well who are into these kinds of games are also just like, it's not explicit enough. So that frequency and that impact, if I was to put these post-it notes on a chart that like charts that out, up, down, left, right, then this is in that top corner where it's like, this needs to be addressed. Um, then there's things that are like, that doorway takes 2 seconds to fix. It's a low like difficulty and low impact thing. And the way I work is, I'll get up, I'll get my coffee, I'll solve five small impact things, and then I'll do the big thing for the rest of the day. Um, or conversely, I'll do the big problem, and then I'll simmer down towards the end of the day by like solving a bunch of really small things that like were at the bottom end of the list, but but would be nice to be done, right? So I like to mix my work days up, where I hit the like critical things, and then time permitted, I try and spend a little bit of my day doing the smaller hanging fruits that are just what I've often called in titles that I've released on bigger teams. Um, it's like death by 1,000 cuts, but we called it. Oh, what did we call it? It was I forget, but that's the analogy anyway. It's like death by 1,000 cuts, right? It's a lot of minor things that are that lead to just the general consensus that this product is a low quality product. So if you can get rid of a lot of those moments of frustration, or just like the little things, then you have a lot better general flow. So I hope that answers the question. Is like, how do I go for it? Me as a developer, yeah, I want to look at frequency, impact, and then also um, balance that with removing as many of the paper. That's it. I call it paper cuts, right? So it's like, I want to remove as many of those paper cuts throughout the experience as possible. And in fact, like a really good example of that was Starship Troopers Extermination, with the designer that we had at the time as well, and a programmer on a little fire team that I was part of. we we chopped off like 100 paper cuts out of that game before the initial early access, and the early access did great. But like 2 weeks before that, we were all really worried. um, and so that was a really fun experience where it's just like you have the freedom and the trust to go ahead and do this. Um, Solve as many problems as you can, dial in all of the variables and tweak certain parts of levels and test it to the nth degree. Uh, but yeah, for this particular project, um, I want to retain, of course, exploration. I want to retain discovery, but I want to eliminate um, any like major confusion around like what your core responsibility is within the game. I want you to be walking around the corridors not wondering what you're looking for, but wondering when you're going to discover it. Because you should just be walking around those corridors going like, where is the anomaly? I'm looking for it. I'm searching. What's the meta way to find the anomaly? And anyone who's run around a labyrinth is stick to the left hand wall. Um, and then there's some set dressing stuff that's like, this doesn't look like an anomaly. But yeah, I really appreciate this. This has been an awesome little process, and it definitely pushes questions onto me that's like, were my intents even good in the first place? So in some cases, were they well thought out? And I think as being almost completely solo with this and bouncing ideas off of a handful of people at certain stages, but not all the way through. Um, Having this assistance and your guidance here and just your fine tooth comb through this has been super eye opening and validating some of the things, and yeah, opening my eyes on other things. So I think it's an awesome process that you have with this, and I thank you very
Oh,
much.
yeah, of course. I'm happy to help. This is what we're here for, to find all those little nitty-gritty issues and call them out before games get released so everyone can have a hopefully better time.
Hmm. Yeah. Is there anything you want to close on before end of stream?
Um, no, I think I'm pretty much good. I still got some playthroughs to look through for
Oh
you.
yeah, yeah.
But once I get all those notes in, I can't wait to see how this thing changes. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm gonna get cracking on with it soon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'll keep you updated as well.
Ooh,
And
please
anyone in
do.
chat, yeah, yeah, will. And anyone in chat as well. So feel free to stick around, subscribe, and all those kind of good things. And you'll see some devlogs in the near future where we may do another live stream where we take a look at some of the things that I did, or maybe we'll do another test with a newer version, and maybe we'll carry on this process and we'll do a couple of iterations, but we'll see. No promises there, but I'll definitely be back with a devlog where I'm like, this is what I definitely did based on this information. So that's a definite. So yeah, stick around and learn a little bit more about UI UX with Kayleigh and I and Annie and the rest of the people at UX is Fine. So yeah, thanks, Kayleigh. I will speak soon.
Will do.
Yeah, have a good one. Bye,
See
chat.
ya.